Well, hey again, YouTube. It's Rob Ryder. And today, Tulsi Gabbard. I'm your Huckleberry. Finding the truth and telling the truth. As you pointed out recently in a speech you gave before the American Legion, you said a number of interesting things. This was 3 days ago, so it's Tulsi Gabbard's message to veterans and those who serve our country. And I didn't find this myself. I had it sent to me. And once I did see it, it's like, well, isn't that interesting? Let's see what Tulsi had to say. So hang on just a second. So Tulsi Gabbard, who started as a private in the Army, I mean E1 enlistee, just like millions of us others, right? She didn't go to West Point. She was E1, did her first tour, then went to OCS. Good for her. And now she's the Director of National Intelligence. Well, guess who that is? Guess who National Intelligence is? It's you, Mr. Enlistee, Mr. Commissioned Officer, if you want to be, but we don't really need you to participate. We could do it ourselves if the President would just give us an order. Because as an enlistee, it's in our oath to follow the orders of the President of the United States. It's not in a commissioned officer's oath. So anyways, Tulsi Gabbard is giving this speech before the American Legion, and she's doing it as an enlistee, as we'll see in just a second. I mean, obviously she's starting out as the director, but we'll see where she finishes. So I'm grateful and honored to be able to serve in his administration as the Director of National Intelligence, where we are tasked with the core national security mission, first and foremost, of finding the truth and telling the truth, and making sure that the intelligence that the President is getting for him to be able to make some of the most important, I added that word, most critical decisions about our national security is accurate, unbiased, and not politicized, and relevant to the task at hand. We face many challenges and threats across the country. President Trump is working hard to make America safe again and bring about real and lasting reform. These are challenges and issues that affect us all, not just one party or another party or one group or another group. Real solutions and real change centered around a heart of caring for one another and rooted in our fundamental and foundational principles. The Constitution is what we are focused on and what has the power to bind us together as Americans. Now, I need to stop right there. She's talking about the American Legion, because all these, flowery wording stuff, that's right out of, well, it's a paraphrase of what's in the Legion's charter. Right? So, she goes on to say, we are the greatest nation in the world because of our people, rooted in the principles of freedom and liberty that are enshrined in our Constitution, and it's both our opportunity, our challenge, and our responsibility to carry that oath that every one of us took, that we swore when we enlisted in the military, to continue that mission for as long as we live. Period. You're still in the military. Every enlistee, no enlistee's ever been released from the military. You didn't get a termination order from the President, then you're still in the military. DD 214 does not remove you from the military. It has nothing to do with anything other than active duty. So because every enlistee is still in the military, every enlistee should have an ID card, because that's a condition of the Geneva Convention. So these are things that need to be worked on, but at least they're talking about it. So I wanted to show Tulsi a few things here that maybe could help her out. All right, and that would start their Director Gabbard by ordering the American Legion to toe the line, right? Because they have not done what they need to do according to their congressional charter to have the authority that they claim to have. They shouldn't even be making lapel pins because they didn't do what they're supposed to do. So it's as simple as registering an agent with the Secretary of State or the proper agency of the state. But that hasn't happened, or if it has happened, it's been undone, and I'll show you an example in a second. So order the American Legion total line to unleash we enlistees peacemakers. Because if the American Legion was doing what it's supposed to do, then as an enlistee veteran, I could go to the post and I could file a complaint. And that complaint could end up being a court case where the United States is the plaintiff, because the American Legion, when properly formed, sues in its name, but it's suing as the United States because it has a congressional charter. It's part of the government. So, yeah, let's see. So, yeah, American Legion must register an agent in every state. The Department of Veterans Affairs must issue 38 U.S.C. 5706, right? That's the United States Code, Title 38 U.S.C. 5706, Veteran ID card, which is a very specific card that requires the Secretary to charge the veteran a fee to get. And if you're not being charged a fee, then you're not being given the card that the law requires. Because this card really has little to do with VA, but what it has to do with is proving that you served in the military. It's a DOD card. It's going to tie DOD records together with VA records to make one homogeneous group. Where right now, all of our records are spread all over the place because they're using 5 or 6 different forms of your name. If you get paperwork from the VA, take a look at it. Robert Allen Ritluski, Robert A. Ritluski, Robert Ritluski, comma, Robert Allen. Well, only one of those is the name that you enlisted under. And I can tell you right now, that's Ritluski, comma, Robert Allen. That's where Robert Allen is your first name. Ritluski is your last name. All right, that's the name that's on the DD Form 4 when you went in, and that's on your DD Form 214 when you go out. But in between, you're always Mr. Middle Initial. Just go look at some of your orders if you have that stuff still. Nevertheless, let's continue on. So we got to get the ID card figured out. And then Trump must enforce 1 Stat 23, which is the very first law of the country after ratification of the Constitution. So when President Washington was sitting there saying, well, we got lots of work to do, what's the most important one? This is the first thing he did, 1 Stat 23, which is the law that says, here is the oath that satisfies the 6th article of the Constitution, to wit, it gives the exact form of the oath. Well, nobody's taken that oath, man. Nobody. Same oath is in 4 U.S.C. 101/102, and those two sections of Title 4, where it's the exact same wording, because in the Constitution, Article 6, it says officers of the United States and of the several states. Well, they continue that on in 4 U.S.C. 101. It's got the exact same wording. It says before any state officer, can do anything in their office, they have to take the oath and have it recorded. Well, Whitmer doesn't have one recorded. I've proven that time and time again. All you got to do is FOIA the Secretary of State and say, hey, send me the oaths you have on file for the governor. And they send you one. Right? They don't send you the one that has the wording that's in this particular law. We'll look at it in a second. And then all officers of the court, public officials, must comply with the Real ID Act and act under their full legal name, which is their identification. They may have taken an oath and have a license to practice in their full legal name, but they do not use their full legal name when they practice in court. So they're concealing their identity. Well, see, that's a fraud against the United States, and this is what we're getting down to. Now, fraud against the United States, that's a military crime. And that shit's happening in a room with a gold fringe flag, which is a military flag. A gold fringe flag can fly in a military courtroom. But don't make any Army Regulation AR 84010 doesn't make any stipulation for the flag to fly in a civilian court, just in a military courtroom. So you go in a courtroom, say gold fringe flag, that's a military courtroom. You don't need to be told different. You're in the military. This is our courtroom. Okay, well if that's the case, and them people ain't using their full legal name and they're violating the real ID, that's a fraud against the United States, and I should be able to file charges and specifications about that. Well, where am I going to do it? Well, that's why we need to be able to go back to the American Legion and say, I was in court today, checking IDs, and these people are not putting their full legal name on their paperwork, and they're not putting the clerk's seal and the stamp of the seal of the court on their orders. My point is that our legal system has been overrun by esquires, and an esquire is an agent of the crown. They don't work for the United States. And we're really not under the Constitution because nobody's taken the oath that's in 1 Stat 23. So, what's going on? And apparently it has to do with the fact that that the Civil War has never ended because the martial law that President Lincoln declared in his General Order 141 over the United States was never rescinded in accordance with the Lieber Code, Article 2. It says what it takes once martial law has been established or enforced. What does it take to end it? Right? It takes a piece of paper. Okay, well, let's see the piece of paper that ended the martial law that President Lincoln declared. And there isn't any. And then finally, we got to get this thing figured out where 28 U.S.C. 3002, which is the definitions in Title 28, which is supposed to be for the judiciary, where it says 50 and then it says what the United States means, a federal corporation. Well, that means the American Legion is the United States because the American Legion is a federal corporation. Other people will try to tell you, no, that means the United States is a federal corporation. No, it means federal corporations are the United States. Also, what else is the United States? Well, agencies are, departments are, commissions are, boards are, or other entities of the United States. An instrumentality of the United States. All those things are the United States. But for our purpose, a federal corporation like the American Legion is the United States. So when it sues in court, it's suing as the United States. I know a lot of people have a hard time with that, but I can't help them, man. I mean, that's what it says, right? I got a 135 GT score, right? I'm one point away from being a certified genius. That's what that means, man. Federal corporation, American Legion. They put me in charge of the brain of a nuclear power plant, man. A federal corporation means the American Legion. I'm telling you, man, that's what it means. The American Legion is a federal corporation, and therefore it is the United States. And if the fucking American Legion would put their paperwork in, right, we could use them to sue these esquires who like to practice in a fictitious name in a military court because what they're doing is happening in a court with a gold fringe flag. And I'll let the court martial decide if they have jurisdiction. That's the great thing. See, court martials decide if court martials have jurisdiction. Not some federal district judge. In fact, the federal district judge, since they didn't take the oath for 1 Stat 23, then they're not a judicial officer of the United States under the 6th article. Then who the hell are they? I believe that they're actually operating, and this is to be proven out, because the oath they do take is held by the Department of Justice. What happened was all territorial courts, Article 4 courts, used to be under the Department of the Interior, and now they're under the Department of Justice. I say all federal courts then are just territorial courts, right? They're not under the Constitution; they're under the territorial law, and under territorial law, you don't have any protection under the Constitution. So I don't want to go to them courts, right? They're not courts of the United States. They're federal courts. I didn't make the rules, man. That's just how it seems to be working out. So now, having blathered on for 15 minutes about this, that, and the other, let me show you the proof. Right here's the charter of the American Legion. And if you go down, you look right here, this is the created by an act of Congress, right? It's a federal corporation. Federal charter, it's a federal corporation. It's a federally chartered corporation. Hey, it's a federal corporation. That means it under 28 USC 3002-15, it's the United States. And what's its purpose? To uphold and defend the Constitution. I said, well, it can't get any simpler than that. To uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. You know what? That's what my oath says. The exact same words. Well, who can be a member? Anyone who served since December 7th, 1941. Now, these used to have a whole bunch of dates in there where there were periods of time where you couldn't be a member, and they used to call those peacetime. And if you served during peacetime, well, you couldn't be in the American Legion. Well, in 2019, Congress and Trump 45 put into law the Legion Act that said basically since December 7th, 1941, the United States has been in one continuous war. The same war from December 7th, 1941 is going on today. And because of that, if you're an enlistee, it means you enlisted during a time of war, and under 10 USC 506, well, if you enlist during a time of war, you do not get released until 6 months after the end of the war, or your enlistment is terminated by the president. And that DD 214 didn't do that. So anyways, hey, we're members, and here's our powers. Right? So, anybody can be a member. Now, any enlistee can be a member. And if we're a member, then these are the powers of the corporation. And you will see that it can sue and be sued and do any other act necessary and proper to carry out purposes of corporations, which means I could then pick up the phone in an official capacity and call Tulsi Gabbard. That act is necessary and proper. I need to give her some intelligence. It's her job to give it to the president. So here's the sticky point. There's all the good stuff. Well, here's the sticky point. So as a condition to exercise of any power or privilege granted by this chapter, the corporation shall file with the Secretary of State or other designated official of each state the name and address of an agent in that state on whom legal process or demands against the corporation may be served. In other words, you have to register an agent, which every corporation does. This isn't that big a deal. That's what all corporations do. Every corporation must register an agent with, like, the Secretary of State. If you want to sue them and need to send them legal paperwork, who are you sending it to? Well, you're going to find that no state has. Now remember, the proper name of the American Legion, they have two. It could be the American Legion or simply American Legion. But it won't be the American Legion Post 506, right? That isn't the American Legion, that's a post. So the American Legion was first incorporated in Michigan in 1920. And for some reason in 1981 it was dissolved. So it is no longer registered in Michigan. If we go back and we look at this, the Constitution and Preamble, now of the American Legion, that the national headquarters of the American Legion shall be located in the city of Indianapolis, Indiana, or surrounding community. Well, you can go search the Secretary of State's website in Indiana. You're not going to find the American Legion, just those words, or American Legion, right? Either or, registered in the state of Indiana. Didn't happen. So, ma'am, you need to make this happen. You need to make the American Legion do this, right? You need to get, I don't know who you got. who you have to push on to make it happen, but, the commander of the American Legion sounds like a good place to start. Have the president give them an order. Well, that would square away the American Legion, and it's just not the American Legion. It's all the patriotic associations that are listed in Title 36. What's yours? You got the VFW, the DAB, you got the Reserve Officer Association. There's a whole bunch of them, and none of them that I've never found one yet that has registered in Michigan. I can't say I looked at them all, but get AI to do it. So now let's look at this, man. This is Title 38, United States Code for Veterans Benefits. So this is a benefit for all veterans. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs shall issue an identification card described in subsection B to a veteran who requests the card, presents a DD-214, and pays a fee. Identification card described is issued to that veteran and blah, blah, blah. It's got these things on it. And the cost of the card then, the secretary shall charge a fee to each veteran who receives an identification card issued under this section, including replacement identification card. The fee charged under paragraph 1 shall equal the amount the secretary determines is necessary to issue an identification card. Well, guess what? You can't get this card, ma'am. There's no way they're going to give you this card. I've been trying for years, different ways. They're not going to give you this card. They're going to give you the one that you can get from the health side of VA. And then they have one you can apply for online. You can send them your own picture online. They're going to send you the card back or whatever. But they're not going to charge you a fee. And so the card they're actually talking about is that if we just look at how this came about, so veterans identification cards, that effective on the day before the date of enactment of this act, which was July 20, 2015, veterans identification cards were issued to veterans who have either completed the statutory time and service requirement for retirement from the armed forces or who have received a medical-related discharge from the armed forces. Well, those cards come from the DOD. This is a DOD card that the VA is going to get for you, or has to get for you, and they're not doing it. Okay, well, that takes care of 1 and 2. Let's look at 3. Trump must enforce 1 Stat 23.4 USC 101, 102. The laws of the United States. Well, that would mean, if this is the law of the United States, that it is the supreme law of the land. And not only is it the supreme law of the land, it's first in line, or it's first in time, so it's first in line. And what it says is George Washington signed it and said, be it enacted by the Senate representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled that the oath or affirmation required by the 6th article of the Constitution of the United States shall be administered in the form following. To wit, I, A.B., now I don't know if that's your full legal name and social security number. Is it a name authenticated by something else, or what exactly that should be? But it's definitely not your middle initial name. Do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. That's the whole oath, nothing more. And if you took the time to read all this, there's all these things supposed to happen that have to do with state officers of the United States, but also in this last part here, that the Secretary of the Senate and the Clerk of the House of Representatives have their own oath to take, which is right here. I, A.B., Secretary of the Senate or Clerk of the House of Representatives, the case may be, the United States of America, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will be truthful and faithful to discharge duties of my office. I would start there, man. Did they ever do that? Because they're the ones that are supposed to be keeping the records of everybody else that took an oath. And if they didn't take theirs, well, damn sure nobody else took theirs. There's no record of it. Shall cause a record certificate thereof be made in the same manner as by law of the state, he or she be directed by a certified oath of office. So in other words, all sounded to me like they were talking about if you had an oath, uh, this would be the proof. That still goes a little slower. Let's just really quickly read section 4, where it says, and be it further enacted that all officers appointed or hereafter to be appointed under the authority of the United States shall, before they act in their respective offices, take the same oath or affirmation, which shall be administered by person or persons who shall be authorized by law to administer such officers their respective oaths of office, and such officers shall incur the same penalties in case of failure as shall be imposed by law in the case of failure to take in their respective oaths of office. Well, in the time of Henry VIII, since our system is based on the English common law system, Henry VIII would have chopped their heads off if they didn't take their oath. That's called an omission. He had St. Thomas More spend a year in the tower and then have his head cut off because he wouldn't take his oath. It's a big deal, man. Well, then at some point they got around to making the United States Code by fractionalizing the statutes at large into categories. And so under Title IV, which is for the flag and seal, seat of government of the state, so that's pretty damn important shit. It talks about in Section 101, oath by members of legislature and officers, where every member of a state legislature and every executive and judicial officer of a state shall, before he proceeds to execute the duties of his office, take the oath of following form, to wit, has the exact same words as we just read in 1 Stat 23. And hey, they got to make a record or certificate thereof may be made in the same manner as by law of the state as he is directed to record certify oath office. Well, they're not doing it. Right? What are we supposed to do about it? Well, an enlistee ought to go file some specifications and charges down at the American Legion, who could then sue as the United States. And the United States doesn't pay to sue. This is the great thing, right? We're not talking about it costing anybody anything. It's just a matter of doing the paperwork. If you're suing as the United States, you ain't paying to sue. Right? You're the sovereign. You get to sue. So since we're talking about the 6th article, we should take a look, see what that says. Constitution of the United States. It says that the senators or representatives before mentioned and members of the several state legislatures and all, A-L-L, all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Well, that sounds pretty straightforward. Then we don't have any senators or representatives or members of state legislatures or executive or judicial officers of the United States in several states, unless they took the oath that's in 1 Stat 23 or USC 101. And none of them have. So we don't have a constitutional form of government. We have a holdover from the Civil War. Because Lincoln's martial law was never rescinded. So I'm not complaining with it. It's just, if you want to make all the shit work right, you need to empower enlistees to go to the American Legion, file specifications and charges. Because here, look at this. Where did I find that? Hang on a second. Here is an indictment against Stephen K. Bannon. Fictitious name. There is no Stephen K. Bannon, right? Stephen Keith Bannon or Stephen Keith Bannon, something like that. There's no. So he's not being sued or charged in his full legal name. Therefore, he's being charged as a John Doe. And United States of America is the plaintiff. Well, who the hell is United States of America? what happened to the United States, right? The Constitution is the Constitution of the United States, not the Constitution of the United States of America. Although there are two different constitutions, and one says United States of America, the other one says United States. The fact of the matter is that 1 Stat 23 says the Constitution of the United States. Well, that oath is with you'll find in the manual court martials. It says it's the Constitution of the United States, 1787. You go and look at what Congress uses, it says Constitution of the United States of America, 1787 with a subscript on it. Whatever all that means. What I know is Stephen K. Bannon is a John Doe being charged by the United States of America. And you go down and look at it, well, some do the middle initials claiming to be an attorney for the United States. Well, I thought the United States of America was doing the prosecuting. And this is supposed to be a true bill, and the foreperson is supposed to sign a true bill. These are all things that are supposed to happen that didn't. So I would say, well, hey, this is a fraud against the United States. This had nothing to do with Steve Bannon. He's the victim. But this is a violation of the laws of the United States. Now we're going to compare that to the United States Army Court of Criminal Appeals, where who's the appellee? It's the United States. It's not the United States of America. It's the United States. So therefore, if the American Legion can sue as the United States, it will be suing into a military court, not a civilian court. Or, I take that back. No, it can sue into because it says it's a civilian organization. It will be, but it will be doing it as the United States. It will just be doing it in the name, the American Legion. But that's the United States. I'm just showing you there's two different jurisdictions here, right? If you're in the military jurisdiction, you're the United States. If you're in the civilian jurisdiction, apparently you're the United States of America. So the American Legion gets to be the agent, the attorney for the United States in this other jurisdiction. Which brings us to our last point, where all officers of a court and public officials must comply with Real ID Act and act under their full legal name. Right? The Real ID Act says your full legal name is your first name, middle names, last name, or surname, no initials, no nicknames. Well, and then an attorney or someone learned in the law, lawyer, so forth, they don't have an excuse for not knowing these things. Okay, ma'am, I'm going to close on these last 2 points, where, again, all officers of the court, public officials must comply with Real ID Act and act under their full legal name. That has to happen. Otherwise, you're concealing your true identity, and that, under the DoD Law War Manual, would be one of the first signs that you're a spy, because you're concealing your true identity. And all process and orders of a court must be under the seal of the court signature of, not judge, of the clerk. C-L-E-R-K. And that comes right out of 28 U.S.C. 1691. Let me show you. So again, in Title 28, United States Code, Section 1691, where it says, all writs and process issuing from a court of the United States shall be under the seal of the court and signed by the clerk thereof. Well, you're not going to find any orders that have been sent that Trump has been told to follow that have the seal of the court and the signature of the clerk. Hasn't happened. In fact, if we take a quick look at the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure and Rule 4 for a summons, what does it say it needs? Be signed by the clerk and bear the court seal. Well, that's because this is a process of the court. Okay, well, Trump got summoned to this case here, or his middle initial name did. All these people did, right? So all these fictions are now being told to be a John Doe and go into this court that doesn't even have a civil case action number yet. There's nothing on here to be summoned to, right? It's an incomplete form, man. Just because it says it is doesn't make it something. It's incomplete. And we go down further, well, look, the clerk didn't sign it. It don't have a fucking court seal. And you go to the next page, which is the proof of service, and here's the proof that there is no service. The damn thing is blank. Well, it's bad enough they do this to Trump. He's a businessman. He doesn't necessarily need to know this, but he needs to know it now. But he didn't need to know it then. But Bondi, she don't have a fucking excuse because she got the same thing. And it doesn't have any action to answer to. It's using fictitious names because Pamela Bondi has another name, Pamela Sue or something. Christy Nome, I'm sure she's got another name to throw in there. Right? The name on your birth certificate, the name on your driver's license. Get a real ID driver's license. That name is the only name that's your full legal name, the name you're supposed to sue and be sued under. But the Attorney General didn't seem to know that. Because, hey, hers hasn't been signed either. And there's no seal. And guess what? Here's the proof of no service. And yet, we continue on like there's nothing we can do about it. Right, here's a different case in the United States District Court, District of Columbia, where Mark S. Zaid Esquires, a plaintiff. Well, Mark S. Zaid, ESQ, and that name does not have standing to sue in a court of the United States. So these must not be courts of the United States, right? The people who need to have the proper oath of office haven't taken it. These must not be courts of the United States. So then we've been invaded, or we're not under the Constitution, or, something's going on. All I know is when you go to the last page of this, right, all these people that are claiming to be attorneys are all using the middle initial name. Well, that is not the name that they became an attorney under, because to become an attorney after you pass the bar, you got to go swear an oath before the highest court of your state before you can practice in a federal court. They didn't do it. Here's another example of the scam, right? This is in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. So it isn't the United States District Court. It's in the court. There is no court name in the. And the thing that's supposed to be on the top of your paperwork going to court is the name of the court. Right? So in a non-existent court, a bunch of people who don't exist are going to go on a case against some people who don't exist. These are all fictitious names in a case that hasn't even got a number on it yet. And the attorneys for the plaintiffs are the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation. Well, the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation cannot represent anybody. It's not the American Civil Liberties Union. They could. That's what their job is. It's a foundation. So, there's another entity called the American Civil Liberties Union. That's over to the left. That's the left hand. The right hand is the American Civil Liberties Union Foundation. And apparently the left hand and right hand don't know what each other are doing. But this is, completely lawless, ma'am. And an E6 and the Army don't have much. The only power I can have, man, is a signed order from a commissioned officer. Then I have all the power I need. I've only ever needed a commissioned officer for one thing, and that was their signature. And once I had that, whatever the order said was what was going to happen. So here we are. That's just kind of an intro, ma'am, that I saw your outreach. As far as I'm concerned, hey, you were talking directly to me. So in closing, ma'am, I am your Huckleberry. I've been at it for 15, 16, 18 years, just finding the truth and telling the truth. I just need somebody to listen and issue an order or two and, just change the things a little bit. Get the American Legion toe the line. Get veterans their ID card. Issue a couple of blanket orders. And we'll take it from there. If we need any help, we'll come find you. We'll get your signature. Until then, we can do it. But the problem is that Esquires' duty is to the crown. They don't have a duty to the President of the United States. But enlistees do. And we have our own judicial system. And them people, Esquires, are practicing in a room that has our flag in it, which is under an eagle, the presidential eagle. So that's the president's courtroom. And that's who our oath is to. So, issue some orders. Let us go to work. Okay. Have a great day, and I hope to hear from you. See you now.